Create type. Create type. So what about create type in Photoshop? Create type in Adobe Photoshop consists of vector-based type outlines, mathematically defined shapes that describe the letters and numbers and the symbols of a typeface. And many typefaces, by the way, are available in more than one format, and the most common formats being type 1, and also called PostScript fonts, and TrueType, and OpenType, and new CID, and CID non-protected, by the way, and Japanese only. And Photoshop preserves vector-based type outlines and uses them when you scale or resize type and save a PDF or EBS file or print the image to a PostScript printer. And as a result, it's possible, by the way, to produce type with crisp and resolution and independent edges. And if you import bitmap type layers created in older versions of Photoshop or Photoshop elements, you have to choose type, then you choose update all, then text layers to convert to vector type. So what about type layers? Type layers aren't created, by the way, for images in multi-channel and bitmap or indexed color mode, because these modes, by the way, don't support layers, and in these modes type appears on the background as rasterized text. And when you create type, a new type layer is added, by the way, to the layers panel, and after you create a type layer, you can edit the type and apply layer commands to it. And once you make a change to a type layer that requires, by the way, it to be rasterized, however, Photoshop converts the vector-based type of outlines to pixels, and rasterized type no longer has vector outlines and is uneditable as type. And you can also make the following changes to a type layer and still edit the type, like change the orientation of type and apply anti-aliasing and convert between point type and paragraph type and create a work path from type and apply transformation commands from the edit menu except for perspective and distort type. And note, and be careful here now, to transform part of the type layer, you must first rasterize the type layer, like use layer stylus and use fill shortcuts and wrap type to conform to a variety of shapes. So what about entering type? Entering type is meaning that there are three ways, by the way, to create type. There are three ways to create a type: at a point inside a paragraph and along a path. And the point type is a horizontal or vertical line of text that begins where you click in the image. And entering text at a point is a useful, by the way, the useful way to add a few words to your image. And paragraph type uses boundaries to control the flow of characters, and either horizontally or vertically. Entering text this way is useful when you want to create one or more paragraphs, such as for a brochure, like the next image now. Type entered as point type and in a bounding box. And type on path follows along the edge of an open or a closed path, by the way. And when you enter text horizontally, characters appear along the path perpendicular to the baseline. And when you enter text vertically, characters appear along the path parallel to the baseline. And in either case, the text flows in the direction in which points were added to the path, by the way. And if you enter more text that can fit within a paragraph boundary or along a path, a small box or circle containing a plus symbol appears in place of a handle in the corner of the boundary or anchor point at the end of the path. And clicking in an image with a type tool puts the type tool in edit mode. And when the tool is in edit mode, you can enter, by the way, you can enter and edit characters as well as perform some other commands from the various menus. However, certain operations require that you first commit changes to the type layer to determine whether a type tool in edit mode, and look in the options bar if you see the commit button and the cancel button and the type tool in edit mode. So what about enter point type? How to enter point type in Photoshop. Enter point type is when you enter point type, each line of the type is independent. The line expands or shrinks as you edit it, but it doesn't wrap to the next line. And the type you enter appears in a new type layer, by the way. And you have steps here now. Step number 1, you should select the horizontal type tool firstly, or the vertical type tool. And the second one, the second steps. Step number 2, click in the image to set an insertion point for the type, and a small line through the eye beam marks the baseline of the type and the imaginary line on which type rests. For vertical type, and the baseline marks the center axis of the characters. And step number 3, select additional type options in the options bar and character panel or paragraph panel. Step number 4, enter the characters to begin a new line and press enter if you use Windows or return if you use macOS. And note and be careful here now. Note and be careful. You can also transform point type while in edit mode and hold down the control if you use Windows or command if you use macOS key. And the bounding box appears around the type, and you can grab a handle to scale or skew the type, and you can also rotate the bounding box. Step number 5, when you finish entering or editing the type, do one of the following. You should click the Command button in the options bar, then press the enter key on the numeric keypad, and after that press Ctrl enter if you use Windows or command return if you use macOS. Then select any tool in the toolbox, and then click in the layers and the channels and the passes and actions and history or styles panel, or select any available menu command. How to enter paragraph type. Enter paragraph type. When you enter paragraph type, by the way, the lines of type wrap to fit the dimensions of the bounding box. You can enter multiple paragraphs, by the way, and select a paragraph justifications option. And you can also resize the bounding box and causing the type to reflow within the adjusted rectangle. And you can adjust the bounding box while you enter type or after you create the type layer. And you can also use the bounding box to rotate and scale and skew type. And you have steps here now. Step number 1, you should select the horizontal type tool firstly, or the vertical type tool after that. And the second step, drag diagonally to define a bounding box for the type, and hold down Alt if you use Windows or Option if you use macOS as you click or drag to display the paragraph text size dialog box, and enter values for width and height, and then click OK. Step number 3, select additional type options in the options bar and the character panel and the paragraph panel or layer, and then select type submenu. Step number 4, enter the characters to begin a new paragraph, then press enter if you use Windows or return if you use Mac OS. And if you enter more type than can fit in the bounding box, the overflow icon appears, by the way, on the bounding box. Step number 5, if desired, resize and rotate or skew the bounding box. Step number 6, command the type layer by doing one of the following. You should click the command button firstly in the options bar. After that, press the enter key on the numeric keypad. After that, press Ctrl enter if you use Windows or command return if you use macOS. Then select any tool in the toolbox. Then click in the layers and the channels and passes and actions and history or styles panel, or select any available menu command. And the type you enter appears in a new type layer, by the way. How to paste lorem IPSum placeholder text. Lorem IPSum placeholder text lets you, by the way, quickly fill a text block for layout purposes. We have 2 steps. Step number 1, you should select a type tool and click to insert the cursor in an existing text line or box. Step number 2, choose type, then choose paste lorem IPSum. And how to resize or transform a type bounding box. how to resize or transform a type bounding box. By the way, to display the bounding box handles of paragraph type with the type tool, active select the type layer in the layers panel and then click in the text flow in the image. And note here please now, you can transform point type while in edit mode and hold down the control if you use Windows or command if you use macOS key, and a bounding box appears around the type by the way. And to resize the bounding box, position the pointer over a handle, and this pointer turns into a double arrow, and shift drag to maintain the proportions of the bounding box. And to rotate the bounding box position, the pointer outside the bounding borders, and the pointer turns into a curved two-sided arrow, and drag and shift drag to constrain the rotation to 15 degrees increments. To change the center of rotation, control drag if you use Windows or command drag if you use Mac operating system, and the center point to a new location. The center point can be outside the bounding box by the way. And to skew the bounding box, hold down control if you use Windows or command if you use macOS and drag one of the middle handles, and this pointer turns into a row head like this image now, skewing type using the bounding box. And to scale the type as you resize the bounding box, control drag if you use Windows or command drag if you use macOS again, and the corner handle. And to resize the bounding box from the center point, alt drag if you use Windows or option drag if you use macOS and the corner handle. How to convert between point type and paragraph type. How to convert between point type and paragraph type. By the way, you can convert point type to paragraph type to adjust the flow of characters within a bounding box. Alternatively, you can convert paragraph type to point type to make each text line flow independently from the others. And when you convert from paragraph type to point type, a carriage return is added at the end of each line by the way of type, with the exception of the last line. We have two steps here now. Step number 1, select the type layer in the layers panel. Number 2, you should choose type, then choose convert to point text or type, then choose convert to paragraph text. Note here and be careful. When you convert paragraph type to point type, by the way, all characters that overflow the bounding box are deleted by the way, to avoid losing text, and adjust the bounding box so that all type is visible prior to conversion. Thank you.